I'm reading the casual side of Memento Mori. The future is now. Okay, and I say that because today we're focusing on a handful of books within the genre of sci-fi and fantasy that I am reading or will be reading in the month of August. And if you've watched my channel, you know that the genre of sci-fi and fantasy is not something that I dip into, very often, but yeah, I am this month, and I'm trying to be very respectful of the the sci-fi and fantasy booktube community. I can't say I watch a whole lot of it, but I am attempting to fit in. I'm going to try to put in some futuristic sound effects in the background. I assume that's what they do over there. Also, I was looking, I think it's kind of an unspoken rule that you're supposed to either hang like either a sword or some kind of framed picture of a dragon in the background. And I was searching online, but I couldn't quite find one that matched my personal aesthetic. But we'll keep looking out for that. And yeah, as for what kind of sparked this whole thing, I am currently rereading Dune, okay? And I actually read Dune for the first time a year ago, last summer, and it was my first time reading it, and I loved it. It was such an immersive experience, and it was a book that I finished knowing that I wanted to return to it, and knowing that I would get so much more out of it with the second read. And I'm about like a third of the way through it now, and it's been even better this time around. It's been so good, and I gotta say, I attribute that to the fact that Dune has a reputation for being a very kind of difficult sci-fi to get into, which I never quite have understood, because at its core, Dune, in a lot of ways, is a very kind of cliched fantasy story. It follows a young dude who is the chosen one, and it follows two royal families, one good, one evil, who are battling it out for control of a planet. In this case, the planet is Arrakis, the Dune planet. And there's a villain in the book that is not the most layered character. He is, he's a giant, floating, fat, psychotic, murdering pedophile, okay? So he's not like the grayest of characters. He's bad through and through. So in those ways, it's kind of a cliched fantasy. The thing that elevates Dune, and the reason why it is the biggest selling sci-fi fantasy of all time, is just all the world building, all the layering of, ecological and philosophical and theological ideas that are kind of wrapped around those cliches, that really, still to this day makes Dune kind of stand apart from a lot of its, contemporaries. I will say it was nice with this read through to kind of go into Dune, knowing the basic structure of the story, knowing kind of the lay of the land, and you are kind of thrown into the deep end in regards to this world and all the strange terms for, the religions and, the different planets and the political structure and everything. And granted, in the back, there's an appendix with a very well laid out glossary of all the terms that you can kind of look back to. But it is nice to be rereading it and not having to constantly be flipping back and forth. And it's allowing me to get a lot more out of it. Yes, it's very nice to be, nerding out with the Ben Gesserit and the Lady Jessica and the Muad'Dib and the Baron Harkonnen and kicking it with the sandworms on Arrakis. It's great to be nerding out with Dune again, and it's something I actually would like to return to every summer, I think. I'd like to make it a little tradition, and I would like to add maybe one book in the series on each year. So in the Dune Chronicles, there is 6 books. I know his Frank Herbert's son, Brian Herbert, I know has continued the series on long after that. I don't have any interest in those, but I would like to slowly read the 6, main books within the Dune Chronicle, and maybe with each year add one additional book on, to read. So I'm gonna wrap up Dune here in the first couple weeks of August, and then in later August, I'm gonna go ahead and hit up Dune Messiah, Book 2 of the Dune Chronicles. yeah, I know from a lot of, I think, Dune fanatics, I know they're not a huge fan of Dune Messiah, if I'm not mistaken, but nevertheless, I'm looking forward to continuing the story and seeing where Frank Herbert took it. So yeah, Dune Messiah later in the month. Next up, we have another staple of the science fiction genre. We have The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. Another book I've been meaning to read Le Guin for a long time, and The Left Hand of Darkness is kind of her most well-loved piece of fiction, I think. And I'm going into it, I don't know a whole lot about it. I know it follows like an alien planet, and it you know, revolves around a lot of issues of gender politics and feminism and androgyny and all of that stuff. Other than that, I don't know a whole lot about the plot. But it does kind of hit two birds with one stone, because it is, on one hand, you know, it is one of the staples of science fiction, one of its biggest pieces of work. And two, Ursula K. Le Guin is a Pacific Northwestern, and I'm really passionate about reading authors from the Pacific Northwest. And I don't know if she was born around here, but I know that she has lived down in Portland for ages, and she's still down there. I think she's in her late 80s. She's still kicking it down in Portland. So yeah, I'm looking forward to The Left Hand of Darkness, finally ticking that off my list. Finally, something a little bit more contemporary, a book that a lot of people on here have probably seen, which is Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. And this is, of course, has gotten a lot of attention recently because last year, it's a collection of short stories, and one of the stories was adapted into the movie Arrival. What's the story is the title story of your life. I actually haven't seen Arrival, and I actually have it queued up on my little stream thing, and I think I'll actually watch the movie before I read the short story within the collection, because I know it has a twist to it. Don't tell me the twist. But I'd rather experience it within the film than within the short stories. But yeah, I don't know to what an extent these stories are you know, infused with science fiction. That's always a tricky thing. You know, hopefully it's not like Margaret Atwood, you know, brand of science fiction, which is not science fiction. So we'll see. But yeah, oh, this was sent to me by Richard at Richard Reads, and I think he liked it okay. I didn't think he loved it. So I'll be curious to see how I get along with this. And yeah, I don't know, the idea of kind of a short story collection of sci-fi just sounded good to, you know, to kind of pepper within these other kind of more classic sci-fis. So yeah, the Stories of Your Life and Others. That's a horrible title, by Ted Chiang. There we go, there's your small stack of sci-fi. Let me know your thoughts on any or all of these books, especially Dune. Have you read Dune? For the Dune heads, is there a name for like the Dune fandom? I don't know. But have you read the whole series? Is there any book within the series that you liked above all the others? I'd love to know your thoughts on them, or The Left Hand of Darkness, or Ted Chiang, whatever. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. The future is now. Beep, boop, 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 beep.